I'm Dr. Christy Taylor, founder of Work Global News Magazine, and I'm here with another exciting interview for our Changemaker series. And today I'm talking to author DC Gomez. She is an award-winning USA Today bestselling author who writes multiple genres. And she publishes in both urban fantasy and children's books, but she has expanded her books into women contemporary literature and nonfiction. So I'm so excited for today's Changemaker interview. I'm going to hand it over to DC to tell us a little bit more about herself, and then we'll jump right into the interview. Hi, DC. How are you doing?
Good morning, Dr. Christy. I'm so excited to be here with you. Thank you so much for inviting me to this series. It's so exciting. I love the title. I think that's one of the things that catch my attention. It's like, oh, that is so powerful. Love it. I'm doing amazing. I'm glad to be here. So thank you.
Well, let's jump right into the interview. I mean, I love the fact that you write for all of these different genres. I mean, you have a background in fine arts and television, and you have just run the gamut here. So you described your storytelling as your passion and your purpose. So what inspired you to really just start this, to start creating worlds where readers can find hope, and how has this evolved into your career today?
One of the things I think every creator has is that story. Like we hit that point in our lives that we have to make a decision. Either when you hit rock bottom, when you find yourself in a place that is just, you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. I think my brother puts it really well. I am a storyteller of a heart. I've been doing this since I can remember. I think since I was 14, I've been doing some kind of storytelling, whether I was in high school doing videos, college, trying to go through the film world. And then life happens. I think that's the part. 9/11 happened. I was in the military. And my goal was I was going to join the military so I can learn about people and write their stories. And then life changed like everything else. And it's that one moment that flips your life upside down. Fast forward 15 years, I'm doing the right thing. I think that's the catch everybody has to realize.
Yeah.
I have the right job. I have the career, I have all the things that we're supposed to do that people tell us this is the life that you're supposed to have. And I found myself being miserable. I was sick and tired. I was not living my purpose. I wasn't doing the things that were innately my passion in my life. And I found myself just hating everything. Like, how do you go from having the dream job and then you hate it? Like, how do you go from, like, okay, you work so hard to get the house and you just don't want to be there
Yes.
because you're not living your purpose? So that's kind of what I found myself. And I had a conversation with a spiritual director at the time, and I'm crying. And this is the part everybody goes like, really? He was like, I'm crying because I'm sick and tired and I'm feeling stuck and I don't know what to do. And somehow that conversation in that afternoon said, I could just write a book. And she challenged me to be like, why not? And I'm like, who's going to read this book? What have you think? And she's like, I don't see the problem. Like, I found myself in a place in my life that I was out of excuses, out of reasons not. And I had to do something to literally save my soul. So that's kind of where it started, on a different medium to create stories that I could connect with myself and then with others. And then it just went wild from there.
I see. I mean, I'm looking at your bio and I'm going to get to that over 30 books that you've published, but I also have to give a shout out because I'm hearing that you are a military veteran, as am I. I went in after 9/11. So, which branch did you serve in?
Army. I tell everybody I'm an Army kid. It's nothing I can do.
So, I was in the Air Force, went in after 9/11. So, I always kudos to you and thank you for your service.
Same to you. Thank you for yours.
Thank you. You're welcome. So you talked about the importance of enjoying your journey. You've shared a little bit of your experience. I love this, and this is why we do this Changemaker series, right? Because we try to highlight people who don't take the straight path. You are not afraid of the windy road, right? And sometimes to get where you want to go, you have to be willing to make that jump because it's all, we can all get into that level of comfortability with our life, especially when you know that you've achieved that goal, like you have it all, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure nobody was expecting you to make that jump. And a lot of times we get what we want and we find ourselves unhappy because it's not as fulfilling. So, you talked about your journey and the importance of enjoying the journey. Looking back now, how do you stay present and celebrate those small victories while continuing to pursue your big goals? So now you're in this thing, right? The road has been winding. How do you manage to kind of stay in this present, especially with all that you're doing?
I think that's probably the hardest thing ever. So for anybody who finds themselves being a type A, and Dr. Christy, you probably can relate to this. we have goals, we have achievement, we have deadlines, there is a to-do list, and we get very focused on that. We get on that roller coaster of all the things we're supposed to do. And I treated probably my creator world just like I did in my corporate world. Like I had all the things that I needed to do. And I had to find myself having to slow down, believe it or not, and truly celebrating the little moments. Anytime I finish a manuscript now, I take myself and my hubby comes with me and we go to the movies. Like we have to have a celebration or else it just becomes another checklist. It becomes something to do. I am coaching now and I'm getting ready to start doing, ghost writings. And I have started a nonprofit with two of my dear author friends and we're going to do a mastermind. Guess what? All those become checklists if you don't stop. If you don't say, okay, why am I doing this? And we do the whole Simon, question when he says, what is your why? The why comes back to, is this still making me happy? Do I still have enjoyment? How does it fit into my soul purpose? Because if it doesn't, it's just another thing that we tend to get lost in the hustle and just continue to add things to our checklist. I am notorious for being an overachiever because I have an expect the personality, like I have to be busy and I gotta be doing. But like you said, if I don't stop and just be able to say, am I enjoying this? Do I do that pulse check? Is this still relevant to the mission that I created for myself? And if it doesn't, I'm also not afraid to cut things out. My God, that was fun. That was a nice season. The end. Let's move on to the next thing.
Well, you are one busy lady because, like I said earlier, like even though you're trying to keep things from not being a checklist, like you must have a lot of them because you have published over 30 books. I would love for you to talk about some of your most recent works, but you've done this across multiple genres.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you keep these ideals fresh when you are in this creative drive, right? And then just kind of tell us a little bit about some of your recent work, some of the stuff that you've been doing recently.
One of the things I found myself doing when I started was doing a lot of collaboration. So it became kind of fun and easy to create a project when somebody tells you, hey, I have this anthology that I want to do based on A, B, and C. So that became a little easier to kind of tap with it. I feel very much blessed that inspiration finds me working. It's a blessing and a curse because anytime you're in the middle of a book for any writer understands, that's when every idea for the best book is going to hit you. You're going to be typing away and be like, ooh, I really should do that. So there's notebooks laying around to honestly get me, make sure that those ideas that keep popping up come back. That's kind of the fun thing about it. So I'm really fun to have a network of amazing authors who are always creating things. What am I working now? I have a brand new book that came out in September that's a little outside my scope, which I tend to kind of joke about it. I have a spicy retelling of Little Red Riding Hood, and she just happens to be a serial killer. So one of the things that I love is just challenging myself in terms of like, what stories can I do? My next project coming up is going to be a romance. I've never done one. So for all of my readers, like, we're doing what? On purpose? I'm like, we're going to try. We're going to, flex those muscles and see, can I pull the story off and give my readers that happy ending that, like, that my characters can have that love story. So this is the year for the love stories. So it's kind of pushing those boundaries and kind of making sure. So we had Cursed by Fur out, we had a motivation book out. So a little bit of everything. We are actually publishing an anthology that we get an opportunity to work with other authors and they're all fantasy related. So I get to play in different fields and just let myself get lost in the stories and just enjoy it.
I really love how you started this process with collaboration. I really enjoyed that process as well as working, especially when you first start out. And you just need that motivation. But even as an experienced author, I'm doing it now. Like I like, and I think that's a great way to start the process. So if you're listening to this and it's like, okay, well, I want to write, I don't know what to do. Look for collaboration opportunities. You can maybe write a chapter of a book. You can maybe be working with other authors, even if you're not collaborating with them on a book specifically. Maybe you guys have like a network, and you're just getting advice and bouncing off of each other because that network of support is so important. I mean, 30 books. It's just like what you've done is so impressive. And it's over 30 books. And the thing is, you're not just sticking with one genre, right? Like you talked a little bit about romance, and I definitely have to pick up this book about red. What is it? The story of Red. What did you say? Red.
It's called Cursed by Fur. It's a spicy retelling of Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah, a little bit.
Because she's a little suspicious. I want everybody to realize.
Oh
Why
my God!
is this little girl? So yes.
And then speaking of, this diversity in terms of how you're writing, you wrote for both nonfiction and fiction books. And do you approach the creative process differently, depending on the type of book that you're working on?
I do. I find myself, to me, my nonfictions are a tad bit more personal than my fiction. When you're writing fiction, especially because I do a lot of urban fantasy, I can hide behind a talking cat. You can hide behind the magic. You can create this universe and still have that connection with your readers, but you're not front center. You're not the main focus of this book. Fiction, nonfiction becomes very personal. It is very pieces of my life that is being pulled. I find life can be a teaching moment any single time. So teaching moments mean you have to share about yourself and you have to be able to get vulnerable and be able to connect. So I'm always very much, anytime that happens, I'm like, oof, we got to do some prayers. We got to do some centering. We got to do some focus.
Mm-hmm.
So the message for that book stays focused within the reader's experience. And I don't have to do a counseling session with myself to say how far I went down the rabbit hole. So to me, usually nonfiction books tend to be a tad bit more internal process than it is a fiction. So it takes me usually longer, believe it or not, to do a nonfiction than it does a fiction book.
Wow. And I love the way that you are always trying to balance and center yourself as you go through that process of writing, right? Now, I heard you earlier, you talked about you're moving into coaching. You just started a nonprofit. Let's talk about the coaching part first, right? As a coach, because I'm a coach myself, as a coach, you help other aspiring authors bring their stories to print. And what's one of the most rewarding transformations that you witnessed in working with your clients? And tell us a little bit about your coaching process.
One of the best things to ever see is a client having their first book published or being able to say, I wrote this, or challenging themselves to write words that they never thought they could. So sometimes I think as creatives, we get very stuck in our own, individual fears. And let's be honest, the imposter syndrome is real. The idea that we sometimes I tell my clients, I think John Maxwell said it very well, sometimes we're more afraid of success than we are of fear. And those things hold us back. So when I'm coaching with my clients, my goal is not just to have a client that can write a book. I want you to be a healthy, successful. I want you to create a sustainable process that you are not going to burn out at the end of book one. But even more important, we talk everything from the ups and downs of the business and how to tackle those things. And my goal is always to ask my clients, where do you see yourself in 5 years? If your dreams are not big enough that they're scaring you, they're not big. We need to work on that. Like, what is it that you want to do with this and where do you take it? So I'm always excited when my clients, and I'm very much the person that's going to push them. I'm going to be a cheerleader, but I'm also going to be your accountability person. And we're going to push it and we're going to see what we can. So having clients to be able to tackle that and then see themselves saying, oh my God. So like yesterday I had the best session with my client because we published his ebook for his new book that came out. And it is number one bestseller in the children's peer pressure category in Amazon. And he was ready. Like the two of us were like, yes. He was like, oh my God, that actually just happened. So that feeling, that excitement, that conversations and the things that he can take to talk to kids about, you can't make that. Like that is not something that can be replicated. You just have to feel it. So it's one of those moments when your clients have the success and they have that wow moment that you're just going, my kid's old, grown up. And it just feels amazing as a coach.
So you are, let's talk a little bit more about this because now it sounds like you said you are opening up. So you coaching, you are moving into a mastermind because you talked about that collaboration. And so let's talk about the mastermind. Tell us about that process. And then want you to mention that nonprofit too.
So, and the mastermind and the nonprofit are kind of all tied together. I am very blessed to have a very robust group of friends. And one of the things we talked about is, where do authors connect? Where do you get that group? Where do you get your community that's going to balance you? And where do you talk craft at a level that we all understand? So we have been talking about it for the last year of creating a mastermind. We're going to do it the first weekend in June. So it's the 6th through the 8th of June. It's going to be in Charlotte, North Carolina, because my girls are actually in that side of the country instead of Texas. And it's a weekend long retreat. It's going to be extremely intimate. You're looking at 30 individuals that can join us to truly connect and be able to talk craft, be able to talk. We're talking everything from marketing to how to conduct an interview. Because I think sometimes as authors, we're so busy on the story that we forget what is the whole image that you're presenting. to connect with everyone. So our goal is to be able to have our individuals create that community. And that's kind of where the birth of evergreenauthorresources.org, which is now their nonprofit, to be able to provide these resources for authors, to be able to give them a place that they can connect. There's a Facebook group with it. And we're looking at saying, I think we kicked off our nonprofit with 24 days of Christmas, and every single day for 24 days, we will drop in a different resource for free that authors can go in. Everything from
Oh,
like,
yeah.
here's a motivation to like, hey, let's talk a little bit about mindset. What are you doing? Once, and I think all three of us are very much intense career path that came here to a different perspective. And one of the things we realize is this is not the business you do alone. While you might be writing alone, publishing doesn't have to be. You don't have to be this person trying to suffer in the back of the corner typing away. You can ask questions and you can have your own community. And we wanted that. We wanted a community that's healthy. And I keep saying that because to me, in a world that has so much, fear mongers and all this tension,
Mhm.
and authors feel they're competing. Sometimes you need to remember we're not. We're not competition. We're competitive in terms of we're putting work. I'm never going to write enough books for one reader to be satisfied throughout the year. It's not going to happen. I don't write that fast. But I know enough people that if we get together, there'll be enough books for all of them. And that's the goal, is to create that world that people can truly find themselves not alone.
I mean, you talk about not being alone, and with all this experience that you have, I mean, you've mentioned the importance of collaboration so much. So I'm so glad that you guys, as experienced authors, are taking this time to do this mastermind, to do this nonprofit. But you have built, with all of this experience, you built a team of editors, designers, and promoters as an independent author. I mean, so many people are scared to go out there and build a team and start from scratch, right? What advice would you give someone who's trying to navigate the challenges of finding the right collaborators? And can they connect with you for that? So they can do
Yes.
this. Is that through the mastermind process with you, right? But for those who are
Yes.
out there trying to figure this out, what advice would you give them? But guys, if you're listening in, the best thing to do would be to connect with her on this mastermind, right? So that you can do this collaboration.
The mastermind is definitely a place where you're going to meet people from all over the world that are doing amazing things. One of the things, my biggest advice to everybody is find the author that you admire in the field that you want and send them a note. If it happens to be an indie author, so you have an independent author, they're going to reply 90% of the time, and they can give you resources. We're one of those people that we just want to talk about the craft. I have not met an author that does not want to talk about the craft, and we can spend hours doing it. So contact somebody you admire, somebody who's doing the same thing, or somebody who's in the same path as you are, and ask them questions like, who is your editor? You'd be surprised how many people call me, ask me that question, like, who's your editor? Do you have an editor you can recommend? I was like, where are you at? Because I have a few. I have a few that I work with. I have a few that are my peers, that are my friends. What do you need? What kind of editor? I got everything from a developmental editor to a copy editor. I have people that said, who does your cover? I was like, let me send you her information because she's looking for clients. Or how do I do formatting? Who am I looking for promotions? So one of the things that I have found out is like, sometimes we think there's a bunch of gatekeepers because we have been brainwashed to believe that the system needs gatekeepers. We don't need gatekeepers. We just need quality control. And quality control comes from within. And if you have a team that can get you there, you don't need to feel overwhelmed. I think the best advice my brother gave me when I first started out, because I felt like I needed to do it all. Like I needed to edit this book. I needed to do all these things because I'm an indie author. So it's always up to me. He looks at me and said, there's these things called editors. Why don't you just get one? And I looked at my brother and was like, I don't think you're my favorite person today. He's like, why are you making your life so difficult when there's people out there that are professionals in the field and they love it? So that's kind of the best part that I have. I've been very blessed, and I don't mind asking questions like, hey, I'm looking for this. Who can do it? And you'd be surprised how many people come back and are like, hey, I know
Yeah, I
somebody
was
like
gonna
this.
say, this is just as a reader. I'm in this large reading group on Facebook, and I just made a comment about, oh man, I love this particular author. And then I like, oh, I read her books in like 3 days and I want to know what's going to happen next. And the next thing I know, that author responded in that group, right? So it's to your point, independent authors will sometimes they don't even if they're not independent authors, they lurk in these reading groups, these book groups, these author groups, these stuff. Don't be afraid to ask or even say, hey, I love your book, right? Because they will respond. I felt like somebody famous had spoke to me even though she was just so um this has really been a great interview. You've answered the questions spot on. Usually I go 30, 40 minutes, but you have answered every single one of these questions, and you've given some great advice. Now, when you talk about this level of support that you're providing, we are really here at Work Global News Magazine. If you've checked the magazine out, we are really all about just highlighting the positive, right? The good things. And
Yes.
this is what this Changemaker series is about. And so when you go through this process of your books and writing and all of the things you're doing to support other authors, let's talk about you as a change maker. What legacy do you hope to leave through your books, your podcast, all of the stuff that you're doing?
One of my biggest things, and the things I'm most proud about, is everybody knows me as the positive author. I have been doing Monday motivations with my newsletter for years. So that's something. And one of the things I've done really well is trying to curate my Facebooks and my social medias to be positive. So one of the things that I want people to be able to connect is, best saying I've ever heard, people don't care how much you know until they figured out how much you care. That's the part. How much do you care about the individuals, how much you care about the readers. I am the author that understands. People don't have to come up to you and tell you that they like your books. Does not have to happen. The fact that they do, to me, is mind blowing. Because you could be doing 500 things. A book is the most intimate affair you're ever going to have. Think about it. Is the only thing you're going to take into private places that people can visit. You ain't taking a book into a bathroom. Nobody else is coming with you. You're taking them to bed. You have made me part of your life and your relationship, whether you like the book or not. You have family members you don't like. That can be that book, and that's okay. But as a writer, that is a privilege that I don't take lightly because it's something important. I am not the keeper of these characters. I am the caregiver of your friends. I just need to make sure not to kill them off in the next page so you don't hate me. That's kind of how I feel as an author. Let's not do that and get you all upset. So my legacy is always to be to create stories that are entertaining, that is going to get you into a different field. And then if you decide to read a little deeper, you can find the moral lesson in it. It's not going to be beat over the head. It's going to be action packed. I have tons of quirky characters. But my goal is always to leave you with a sense of like, that was an interesting journey. Let's do it again. And I want people to feel that way, to find that hope, to find that excitement, and be able to get lost in the book. Because to me, the best thing I can do when I have some free time is just to read. I'm like, I have enough books to be busy. Yeah, what do you need? Because I got books. Like we have things to do when I'm not writing that I could be reading. So it's the things that I want people to take away and be able to fall into that sense again of like, I really love this.
Well, listen, I want to give you some advice as a reader because I figured this out last night, right? I said I finished up a book last night, and I what I like in books are the epilogue, right? When you know how you get to an end of the book. I was reading a romance novel last night. I finished it up, which is what you're about to write, right? And I like when they like epilogue 2 years later. Like I get to know what happened to the people at the end of.
Okay.
So if you write a book, if you can leave an epilogue, let us know what happened to the character. If they fell in love and they got married, well, what happened 2 years later? That one little page makes the difference. You have like those shows that you maybe watch. Like I grew up watching A Different World and all of those shows, right? And I was like, what happened? Because it becomes such nostalgia. So I'm so glad that the legacy that you leave is not only this shared experience with the reader, but helping them to understand if they take a deep dive into your work, there's always a lesson that can be found within that. Now, for those that are aspiring to pursue their creative dreams, but they're feeling overwhelmed or unsure of where to start, what is one piece of advice that you would give to that you would share with them to help them take that first step?
This sounds so cliche because I think every writer is going to tell you is start. It doesn't matter where you're at. Don't look for perfection because I think sometimes we get stuck in the train of perfection and that one's never coming. There's never going to be a perfect book. There's never going to be a perfect piece of work. Just start and let yourself get lost in the moment. Everything else will happen later. So focus on, if you're going to write, just write. If you need to edit, then edit. But just let yourself and give yourself permission to be in that moment and just fall in love with it. Because at the end of the day, the best piece of advice that I heard is we write for ourselves, we publish for others. Then enjoy that. Because if not, you can spend 20 years talking about the book you're going to write and never putting words on papers. Just start. Be like Nike that day. Just do it. Everything else will figure itself out.
I always say just start where you are, use what you have. That's what I
Amen.
always say.
Yes.
This has really been a great interview. Let me ask you this, DC. What do you have coming up? So you talked about the mastermind. So my final questions to you is like, what do you have coming up? Let's plug that mastermind again. What do you have dropping? Let's sum it all up and tell people where they can find you.
So 2025 is going to be an amazing year for everybody. We have a mastermind in Charlotte, June 6th through the 8th. It's going to be, for that information, you can check out evergreenauthorresources.org. The mastermind's available online. We also have a scholarship that you can check out to see if you're interested. So that is coming out for aspiring authors, established authors who are looking to connect in a community. This is an amazing part. For readers, I have a new book coming out this fall in August. It is actually a little different. It's an urban fantasy romance, so be prepared. There will be some murders and kidnapping, all the fun stuff, but there will be a romance. And it's called Sugar Plums and Desk Intern. And the premise is very simple. Bob doesn't believe in love until he met her. Too bad she's a ghost. So here we go.
So where can people find you? So, what is your website?
Easiest way to connect to my social is dcgomez-author.com. Almost like it says on the line without the dots. It's all one word, dcgomez-author.com. You can have, I think right now we're featuring all the books that I got published in 24. So for anybody who wants to catch up on that, you can pick up the series, urban fantasy, children's books, anybody's interested. Even have some devotionals. I got a motivation book. So you get a little bit of everything. If you enjoy quirky characters, madness, shenanigans, and plots that's just going to make you go, oh my God, give me some more, I'm your girl.
Yeah, I was checking out your books on Amazon. I was like, man, you have just run the game. You have like a really diverse set. Over 30 books. She left corporate America, and here she is with 30 plus books later. Uh, she has taken her own path. She took the windy road, not the straight path, not what was easy, right? And this is an example of you being a change maker in your own life as well as the people around you, because now she's gone from author to coach to building this mastermind. She's offering scholarships. So, this is a way of creating opportunity. Just fantastic. Well, thank you, DC. This has been a fantastic interview today. This has been another episode of Work Global News Magazine featuring our Changemaker series, and we are excited to share your story with our audience. Thanks for tuning in. You guys have a great day or night whenever you're listening to this.